welcome, and let's look at something different today. So let's say we had a room and we had some temperature sensors. We had a house with different rooms and temperature sensors that we had, and let's just say these are the readings that we had. We had temperature from the kitchen, from the living room, from the bedroom, from the dining, right? And we wanted to know if the temperature was all right, was it above or below our set threshold, right? And so that we would receive alerts such as the room temperature, is it high or is it low, and all that, right? And as you can see on this page, right, I actually have the code for that. Checking the temperature in one room, the next, the other room, and this looks like a lot. Looks like a lot, right? But as you can see, it's actually the same thing. It's just the same function. It's the same, not the same function. I mean, it's the same if statements that are there. They're the same conditions that are being checked. And so forth, right? So this is something that we might not want to look at, like, as it is a lot and seems it is not neat. It's not neat, and it's a lot of work. It will, or if only there was a way that we could do this without having to rewrite the same code all over and over again. Imagine if you had a house with 100 rooms and you wanted to get this alert, and you had to put the piece of code for each and every temperature you're getting, right? It doesn't look like the most efficient way of doing it, right? It works, but it might not be the best way to do it. So here we're going to introduce what we call functions. So functions are a block of code that perform specific functions for specific tasks, right? So these blocks of code are reusable. That's the good thing. So if we write it once, we can use it a lot in the code that we have, and it's not just used once. And that's the good thing about this. So let's introduce them in the next cell, right? So over here we're going to write a function. So I'm going to show you what I mean when I say we can use it many times and all that, right? And we can actually do this. It's just a few lines of code, right? So for a function, the syntax is like this. We have to define the function first, and that is done using the def, right? So it's written like this. We have to define that function, so you write it like def, and then you define the function. The name of the function comes up. So here you can determine what name of function you want. Again, it doesn't have spaces. The name shouldn't have spaces. It just be like a variable name. It should have, you can put underscores if you want it to be more readable, but two as a single word, right? So we can use this. I'm going to use this five. I'm going to use check temperature as my name. I'm going to use check temperature, right? And what this does is we have to put a parenthesis afterwards, and then in those parentheses it should take in a parameter. That's how functions work. It can be blank in some cases, but then in other cases it definitely has to. For this case, the case that we want to use it for, we have to have a parameter that it takes in, right? And in this case, it will be a temperature parameter, right? I'm just going to write temp there. Then we put in our colon at the end there, and this is the starting line of the function. So our function name is check temperature. That's the name of our function, right? Then it takes in a parameter, and the parameter is called temp. So this is like a temporary variable, but this is for temperature, not temporary. So let me just write it so that we don't have anything there, right? Then 100, right? The temperature will be like our temporary variable that we have that will store the values we'll actually put in, that will be there for, so it's like a standby for the actual temperature values that we're going to insert there, right? And what does this function do inside? So this function, it will take that variable, that's the value of that variable temperature, the value of this, and it will check if it's above or equal to 30 and all that, like what we were doing here above there in the numerous lines of code that we had here. So we're going to have it check, and it's going to check using the if function. So we have the if function being used inside our code. So it's going to check if that temperature is greater than or equal to 30, and then we're going to print if temperature is high or if temperature is low, right? So let's just type that there. Like I said, make sure that setting is turned off. This is just so that our lectures aren't as long, right? Then let's look at this now. This is what we call a function. So our function is done, right? So what do we do now that we have our function, right? we have our function there. So how do we use the function? So whenever you want to use the function, you just have to call on it. It's referred to calling the function when you want to use it. If you have defined it, so if you have defined it once like this, you can use it now in the rest of the code anywhere else in the code, right? Well, there are some special scenarios, but let's just say we can now use it in our code and we can call it. How do we call it? We write the name of the function. It's check function, right? Oh, sorry, not that. It's check temperature, not check function. Sorry, it's check. Temperature. Wait a second. Right. So, what do we put in here? So over here, it's giving us a suggestion. It could work, like, but just forget what it's writing over there. So let's look at what we wrote. We wrote when we're defining the function here. This is the name of the function, and I said here this is just a temporarily a variable that we're putting there that we will use for our actual values, right? Then it's like a parameter that we have. So check temperature will work. The only way we can make this function work is if it's taking in a parameter. And for here we have used temperature to be temporary for that. Then so we are actually going to have to put a value in there, and then that value, like I mentioned, we're going to put temperature values. So let's say we want to check it for any room that we have. So I'm going to check for the rooms, right? Let's just say we are in the living room. In the living room, we have 25 degrees. That's one that's recorded, right? So we can do it like this. So we want to check the temperature for the living room to see how it is. Then we put the value of the temperature there. It's 25, and then we're going to run it. Let's run it and see. So it will tell us that the temperature is low. We can write it like this. So this is what functions do. So you can come anywhere else you want to use it. So I can now come again and say, oh, I want to use the function that we used previously. I can come in and I'll write check. Over here, and then let's see another temperature for the bedroom. It was 50. I can put in a 50 there and I'll run this. It'll tell me that the temperature is high. I don't have to rewrite the code. I just have to call it and put in a value for the temperature that we have, since that's how we define our functions. And then this is what we're getting. So this is a function. And then to make this readable now, this might be a bit too vague. If you look at it here, how will I know that this was for the bedroom and this was for the kitchen and all that? What we can actually come in and do is this. Let's write code there. You remember the suggestions that they gave us, how they were writing kitchen temperature and all that. That could work, right? You have to come back into what's inside. But for us to see it, we can also show it in another way. Let's write this. Let's write it. There's so many ways you can do it. It just depends on what you want, how you want to read these values, right? Then kitchen is equal to, then we can say check. Sorry. It's check temperature, right? So something like this, right? So let's tab this for all our rooms, right? So we can write kitchen. We can create a variable where we place the code function, the check temperature over there. We can write it like this. So this variable is calling the function. So it's calling the function. Kitchen is calling the function. Living room is calling the function. Bedroom is calling the function. Dining is checking. You can write it like that if you want, so that you remember and you know that, oh, this is for the kitchen, this is for the living room, this is for the bedroom, and all that. You can write it like that. And or you can come in here and you can define your variables like what we had done there. You can come in and call it like this. You can write check temperature. Check temperature. You can write how do you define our variables here. We had temp bedroom, temp dining. You can come in there and write it like that as well. Temp. We can write it like that. Yes. Sorry, I didn't finish that. It's temp kitchen, then tab over there. Right. Since we have these variables already defined, we defined them somewhere there. 50, 25, 45. So these are the values. So these are written in place of those values. But we know that these are 45, 20, 50, and 44. Then we can come in and run it like this. Oh, is the error? Temp kitchen is not defined. Didn't I define it? Let's see. Did I run this cell? Oh, I didn't run this cell. That's why it's saying it's not defined. Because I previously had not run the cell. As you can see, we have a tick there. And over here, we don't have a tick. That means this cell was never executed. So after executing it like this, I'm sure the error will disappear. Let's run it. Yes. So our temperature is high and all that. We can write it like that. We can show our price like that. I want to see what else we can do. We can also do it like this. Right. Let's see that sorry. Right. We can write it like this. Yes. It was already intended for us there. You can write it like that. Print kitchen, this is right tab. We can write print kitchen tab. And then after printing that, you just code that after that, so that it will print the statement, and then it will run the check temperature function, where it will determine if the temperature is high or low. So this is more informative. It'll give you all the information you have when you print. So this is very important because we need this information. So here it goes, kitchen tab, temp is high, it will give you that. So there are a lot of ways you can display this being the best, since this gives you all the information in your output rather than just this. Because imagine if you had a really large piece of code where you have a lot of things being printed, a lot of things will come out, and you want to remember that temp is high for which function, by the way, for which room rather, when did I call it, and all that. So you have a lot of questions there. But then with this method, it kind of gives you everything you want to show there, right? So this is a function. Functions you can, so it's not only for if control flows no, you can also use it for you can also use it with while loops or basic operations, anything you want. We're just saying that functions are important so that we don't have to repeat code. So any piece of code you want to repeat, you can use a function, if it's just printing. So it also makes code easier to read, right? So we'll use functions a lot when we are not dealing with AI models, because maybe some of the things we might not want to repeat them and all that. You might have to use them. It will depend with the situation. But when you don't have when you don't want to reuse pieces of code, you don't have to have functions, right? So like I mentioned, let's just do a recap there. DEF, this is define function. Temperature, this is the input that we're putting in. This is the parameter, the input that we're putting in. We're gonna put it as these are going to be integers, right? For this case, it could be anything else, but for this specific case, this input was going to be an integer, right? Then a function only runs this function, right? This check temperature, this all of this will only run when it's called. And look at this is us calling it. We call it by its name. Then we put in this parameter, which is going to be our input over there. So I think this is what we have for our functions. And let me just get into our errors, right? So that we just look at errors that we might get when we run any piece of code, right? Let me just run this, right? And let us look at the error message. So the error message that we do get over here, it might seem overwhelming at start for some of them, but it's good for us to be able to read them. You just have to go through it. You find that file, this, that. You might not know where this is coming from and all that. But then it does tell you line 3. You're thinking line 3, 1, 2, 3. And you even see that you do have a squiggly line there. And that one is red. Shows that this is probably where the error is, right? This is the line that has the error. And it will tell you this. Print, and then it will put this. There's this thing over there that they put there. Let me try to see if I can draw there. Unfortunately, I can't draw on top. Alright, anyway, we do see this thing over there, right? Then it's saying that syntax error, over there it says syntax error. This parenthesis in brackets was never closed. So this actually tells us where the error is. Such a thing as we didn't close this, so it's here. Since this has to have a closing counterpart, right? It comes in and tells us, oh, we didn't close that. We can come in and close it there. Then when you run this, it's fixed, right? Then some errors might be, let me do this. Let me just... And then we're gonna put in I wanna see, is it temp kitchen? Temp kitchen there. So here I just want us to print the temp kitchen value as well. Over here I want us to print it, and let's run that. It'll tell us that we have an error because we forgot something. You read it line 1, this is line 1, that's where we have the error. The previous one was in line 3, we also got line 3. Then over here, it's telling us invalid syntax, perhaps you forgot a comma. And then you come in here and you look at it. If the comma isn't there as such, where it's indicating to, but it is within that bracket. Here we are supposed to put a comma there. That's the syntax. Then if you run this again, you get a fizz. So there are a number of errors that we do have. So we do have syntax errors. These are the ones that we are facing over here. We do have other type of errors that we can find. So this could be x. So let me write something is equal to, call the x is equal to, yes. This is another type of error that you might find. Zero division error. Division by zero. This is an error. This is an error. This is an error. This one break out. It will give you. So there are different types of errors. So we have syntax. We have these ones. And I would like you to bring to my attention a couple more errors that we might find and examples of where these errors might be made. So thank you so much for watching. I'm sure that we are done with our short tutorials on functions, and with this I'm sure the worksheet you'll be able to complete about 70% of it or so, and in the next video we shall just close this up and start with loading and exploring our datasets.